Meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Bega Chairperson Norma Hutcheson, and this meeting is being held at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700 West, and virtually. Joining me for this meeting are board members Felice Smith, Darrin Sobin, and Melissa Tucker. Together, the four of us constitute a quorum for this meeting. Since it was first posted, there have been no changes to the agenda, but I ask that you take a minute to review the agenda and then we'll need a motion to adopt it.
I'll offer the motion to adopt today's agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. If there are no comments or suggestions, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And no nays. Hearing none, the board has adopted the agenda for today's meeting. Also before us are the minutes, the draft minutes from the February 2025 meeting. Please offer a motion to consider approval of the meeting minutes. Okay.
I'll offer the motion to approve the meeting minutes. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider the approval of the February 2025 meeting minutes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Hearing none, the board approves the February 2025 meeting minutes. Next, we'll hear a report from the Office of Open Government. Director Allen, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government, and I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government, or OOG. Our mission is to ensure that all persons receive full and complete information concerning the affairs of the District of Columbia government and the actions of its officials. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued its work to ensure that District of Columbia government's operations are transparent, open to the government, promote civic engagement. To that end, OOG has enforced the Open Meetings Act, advised on the Freedom of Information Act requirements, and provided trainings on those transparency laws. OOG has proudly served as advocates for an open and transparent government. I will begin my report with Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice rendered by OOG since the last board meeting. First are advisory opinions. Dismissal of OMA complaint number OOG-2024-0002. On February 7th, 2025, I dismissed a complaint against the Zoning Commission because the allegations in the complaint did not violate the Open Meetings Act. The complainant alleged that the Zoning Commission failed to provide OMA compliant notice of its November 9th, 2023 meeting. However, OOG's investigation revealed that the meeting was properly published in the DC Register. A copy of the dismissal letter has been added to Dropbox. Dismissal of OMA complaint and advisory opinion, Council of the District of Columbia, number OOG-2024-0007. On February 12th, I issued this advisory opinion dismissing an Open Meetings Act complaint regarding the council's gathering related to the monumental deal with the District of Columbia. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-579, the Director of Open Government is not empowered to bring a lawsuit in DC Superior Court for violations of the OMA respecting the council. The statute requires the council shall adopt its own rules for enforcement related to council meetings. The council, in its rules for council period 25, created a category of gatherings that are not subject to the OMA. Also, while the council is generally subject to the OMA, pursuant to the period 25 rules, enforcement regarding its own meeting and other gatherings reside with that public body. Pursuant to the council's period 25 rules, I referred the complaint to the DC Council by way of its Office of General Counsel. I ultimately dismissed the complaint submitted to OOG for lack of jurisdiction. A copy of this opinion is in Dropbox. Dismissal of OMA complaint number OOG-2025-0051. On February 27th, 2025, I dismissed the complaint because I do not have jurisdiction over boards and commissions in the state of Michigan. The dismissal letter provides the statutory basis for dismissal, including information for contacting the Michigan state authorities that regulate meetings and the conduct of government officials. A copy of the dismissal letter is in Dropbox. DC FOIA Advisory Opinion, Executive Office of the Mayor, number OODG-2024-004 AO. On March 25th, 2025, I issued this advisory opinion in response to a request concerning the issuance of multiple notices of extension by the Executive Office of the Mayor pertaining to a DC FOIA request for specific communications about the Mayor of the District of Columbia's trip to Dubai for the 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference and her visit to Doha, Qatar with the DC Chamber of Commerce. In this instance, EOM improperly invoked extensions in its processing of the requester's DC FOIA request. EOM also failed to notify the requester of his appeal rights after the expiration of the 15-day time period to respond and the first 10-day extension. I noted that although EOM's FOIA officer asked the requester to narrow the scope of his request, the time for responding was not told because EOM's FOIA officer made the request after the time for responding had expired. From a legal standpoint, the issue of EOM's response time is now moot because EOM provided the requested records. The requester appealed to the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel because the records provided were redacted. The MOLC upheld EOM's decision to redact the records. The requester has not yet indicated whether he will take additional action. A copy of the advisory opinion is in Dropbox. Informal advice. Since the last board meeting, OOG has informally via email, telephone, or teleconference to request for assistance as follows: 22 requests for Open Meetings Act advice, 10 requests for FOIA advice, and 12 requests for technical assistance with the website open-dc.gov. Meeting monitoring is next. OOG staff attends public bodies meetings in person and remotely to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. They also inspect public bodies websites and OOG's central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and records. OOG's attorneys provide legal advice on OMA compliance and take corrective action if necessary. Since the last board meeting, OOG's legal staff attended 14 public body meetings. As a result of this monitoring, 3 corrective measures were communicated. The public bodies failed to post a proper agenda pursuant to the regulations. The agenda was not detailed or it was absent. OOG's training and outreach activities follows. FOIA training for the Deputy Mayor of Education. On February 7th, I participated in FOIA training for staff members in the Office of the Deputy Mayor of Education. I provided basic information on FOIA and participated in a question and answer session where I answered frequently asked questions concerning FOIA requests. DC portal public comment session. On February 12th, at 4 p.m., OCTO, in partnership with OOG, hosted a public comment session regarding the new FOIA system powered by GovQA. During the public comment listening session, opening statements were made by representatives of OCTO and myself, and there was a video presentation regarding the new portal and the opportunity for the public to provide comments on the new system. OOG staff attended the session. DC FOIA basic training for beginners. On February 18th, Attorney Brandon Lewis presented FOIA basic training for beginners. The training introduced the basics of DC FOIA and provided instructions on how to perform your FOIA officer duties. This training was the first in OOG's new monthly FOIA training series, the schedule for which has been published. OOG staff and I attended the training virtually. DC Office of Public Records Making Reference Request Training. On February 12th, Bega's Records Officer, Attorney Joan Lelma, attended the Office of Public Records Making a Meeting Reference Request training facilitated by the DC archivist, William Branch. The training covered the process for requesting records from the Federal Records Center and the DC Archives. Practicing Law Institute course, records, and generative AI. How will they get or not get along? On February 25th, I completed a CLE course concerning generative AI. The faculty discussed the definition of record and whether generative artificial intelligence created information may or may not be a record, the laws and regulations that impact generative AI as records, creation, retention, and preservation of generative AI, possible consequences of failure to comply with the laws and regulations to preserve records, and generative AI trends for the foreseeable future and how those trends might affect information governance. Advancing racial equity, the role of government. On February 26th, I completed Advancing Racial Equity, the Role of Government training facilitated by the Office of Racial Equity as part of the DCHR's Management Supervisory Service Week in February 2025. This training was designed to better equip managers to identify and address issues of racial equity by increasing foundational knowledge of varying types of racism and the mechanisms that have perpetuated racism, deepen discussions on dismantling race inequities, and build capacity using racial equity tools that are essential to advancing race equity across departmental policies, programs, and practices, creating a fair and just district government. And now I'll provide the litigation and legislative update. Litigation, Leslie Richards versus the District of Columbia Finance and Treasury, case number 24 CV 0034. In the DC Court of Appeals, and case number 2021-CA003762B in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this pro se case in which the plaintiff appellant sought information about a disbursement. The Superior Court dismissed the complaint because the plaintiff failed to properly serve the district nor state a claim upon which relief could be granted. The requester appealed. A motion for oral arguments was filed on January 10th. The court denied the appellant's motion for oral arguments on January 21st. On February 19th, the case was submitted to Associate Judge Beckwith and Howard and Senior Judge Thompson. The matter is currently under advisement and ready to be decided. OOG staff will continue to monitor. Phillips versus District of Columbia, case number 122 CV 00277 before Judge Boasberg in the DC District Court. I have previously reported on this case in which Amy Phillips alleged under 42 USC section 1983 civil action for deprivation of rights that the Metropolitan Police Department maintains a watch list targeting certain DC FOIA requesters. As way of a reminder, Phillips' lawsuit is based on information provided by Vindek Parker, who was MPD's FOIA officer from October 2017 to January 2020. The 2022 lawsuit was accompanied by a 12-page statement signed by Parker. In her statement, Parker said that she was advised of an unofficial, unwritten policy that required the FOIA officer to notify former Chief Newsham of any FOIA requests originated from the media, certain identified individuals, and requests for certain records. The district has denied these allegations. The court referred the case to a magistrate judge for mediation, which is ongoing. In a February 28th joint status report, the parties indicated that they are in the process of finalizing a settlement agreement. If the case is not voluntarily dismissed by March 7th, the party will submit another joint status report. A copy of the joint status report has been added to Dropbox, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Washington Post Company, LLC versus District of Columbia, case number 2023 CV 0488 in DC Superior Court, and case number 2021 CA 002114B in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case in which the Washington Post sued the district under DC FOIA for certain records related to the Capitol insurrection. The Superior Court granted the district's motion for summary judgment and the Post appealed. On January 24th, the court ordered the parties to be prepared to discuss at oral arguments what, if any, impact of the recent commutations, pardons, and dismissals would have on this appeal. Oral arguments were held on February 6th, and the case is currently under advisement. OOG staff will continue to monitor. Gooch versus the District of Columbia Metropolitan Police Department, case number 2023 CAB 002404, DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case in which a requester plaintiff sued the district for records related to his conviction. The plaintiff had received partly redacted records. The parties previously agreed to work on redactions and the bond index, providing updates at each status hearing. A status hearing was held February 13th. The defendant's counsel stated that no updates had occurred, therefore the matter was continued to March 28th. DC's Open Government Coalition versus the District of Columbia, case number 2023 CAB 007251 in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case in which the DC Open Government Coalition sued the district seeking an accounting of the backlog of public records requests submitted through the FOIA Express public access link. The plaintiff asked the court to set a briefing schedule for motions for summary judgment. The government opposed this on the basis that no new issues had been raised since the last time the parties have been briefed on the issue. On September 18th, 2024, the court ordered the plaintiff to provide a supplemental brief explaining why new motions for summary judgment are necessary. The plaintiffs filed the supplemental brief as well as a motion for leave to amend the complaint on October 2nd, 2024. The district responded with an opposition to plaintiff's motion for leave to amend the complaint on October 23rd, 2024. On January 23rd, 2025, the court granted plaintiff's motion to amend and denied the cross motions for summary judgment as moot. The plaintiff filed their amended complaint on January 24th, 2025. Copies of the court order and the amended complaint have been added to Dropbox. The next hearing is scheduled for March 28th, and OOG staff will continue to monitor. Jamel Dubose versus the District of Columbia, case number 2018 CA 000378V. I have previously reported on this case involving the Board of Dentistry's disciplinary records. The district filed a renewed motion for summary judgment on September 13th, 2024, arguing that the denial of a public interest waiver fee to the plaintiff was fully justified and the $9,000 fee estimate was reasonable. On February 4th, 2025, the court issued an order denying plaintiff's petition for review and denying as moot defendant's renewed motion for summary judgment. The court found that Dubose's complaint, though brought as a suit under DC Official Code Section 2-537, is properly construed as a petition for judicial review of an agency decision under Section 2-510. Given this determination, the court found that the case was right for review and the standards set forth in DC Official Code Section 2-510A3. The court concluded that Dubose's petition for judicial review should be denied and that the Department of Health's decision to decline his request for a public interest fee record and assess $9,000 in fees should be upheld. A copy of the court's order has been added to Dropbox. Legislation. The council has not passed or considered any legislation related to open government since the last board meeting. Reports to the council, the mayor of the District of Columbia, EOM, and the attorney general for the District of Columbia, OAG, are required to provide annual FOIA reports to the council of the District of Columbia. MPD is also required to submit a body-worn camera report to the council every 6 months. The OAG transmitted the district's annual litigation report arising under FOIA to the council on January 31st, and a copy of that report has been added to Dropbox. The Executive Office of the Mayor has not released its FY 2024 FOIA report to date. FY 24 body-worn camera report. MPD did provide the council with its body-worn camera report on December 12th, and a copy of that report is in Dropbox. I will end my report with administrative matters, performance oversight hearing. On February 5th, the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety held an oversight hearing on Bega's performance. On March 3rd, the committee communicated post-hearing questions to Bega after the hearing. We are currently working on the supplemental response to the questions concerning virtual meetings, and the post-hearing questions are in Dropbox. FY 2026 budget formulation. On February 6th, the council held a public oversight hearing on the Committee of the Whole on the fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. By law, this report must be submitted to the council by February 1st. census hearing, the FY26 revenue estimate was revised downward by the Chief Financial Officer by $325 million, or approximately 3%. Bega submitted its budget proposal for FY26 to the mayor on November 20th, 2024. Bega has required several budget enhancement requests for the mayor to consider in her submission to the council. Bega's budget enhancement requests regarding OOG are as follows. 1, to restore the agency's non-personnel services funding to the FY24 level, and 2, to fund OOG's trial attorney position, who's primarily responsible for bringing cases in Superior Court for OMA violations, and to argue for temporary restraining orders and injunctive relief as the OMA requires. The council has not yet received the mayor's FY 2026 budget proposal. This concludes the Office of Open Government's March 6th report. I am happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Director Allen. Are there any questions for Director Allen? No questions. Thank you. Then next we'll hear from the Director of the Office of Government Ethics, Ashley Cooks. Director Cooks, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First is an update on the status of OGE operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur because of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. For open investigations by status, we have a grand total of 53 matters. That includes 52 matters that are open and 1 matter that is open pending show cause hearing. For open undocketed matters, we have a grand total of 9. Pending state investigations by status, we have 36 matters that are closed pending collection. 1 matter stayed pending DC Superior Court case. 4 matters stayed for OIG investigation. 3 matters stayed for U.S. District Court case, for a grand total of 45 stayed matters. For regulatory matters by status, we have 35 matters that are closed pending collection, 67 matters that are open, for a grand total of 102. Again, we currently have 53 investigations that are open and 8 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 5 new matters. The investigative team resolved 10 investigations since the board last met. This total does not reflect the number of complaints that were dismissed for a lack of jurisdiction. Next is an update on training and outreach. First, professional development trainings attended by staff. Senior Board Attorney Lynn Tran attended Working Alongside AI Responsibly and Ethically. She and General Counsel Rashi Raj both attended an informational session on artificial intelligence for DC government staff hosted by the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. Last week, the Department of Human Resources Center for Learning and Development held MSS Week, which was a week of managerial trainings held both virtually and in person. I attended Communicating Strategically and Building High-Performing Teams. Chief of Staff Christina Mitchell attended Giving and Receiving Feedback, and Supervisory Attorney Asia Stewart Mitchell attended Performance Management. On March 20th and 21st, I will participate in the Council of Europe's Group of States Against Corruption, GRECO, 6th Evaluation Conference in Strasbourg, France. GRECO was established in 1999 by the Council of Europe to monitor states' compliance with the organization's anti-corruption standards. GRECO helps to identify deficiencies in national anti-corruption policies, prompt the necessary legislative, institutional, and practical reforms, and provide a platform for sharing of best practices in the prevention and detection of corruption. This evaluation round will focus on preventing corruption and promoting integrity at the subnational level. I will participate in a plenary session titled Preventing Corruption, Building an Ethical Infrastructure, Transparency, and Control Mechanisms. For trainings conducted by staff, since the last board meeting, OGE conducted 9 training sessions, 2 new employee orientation ethics segments, 2 financial disclosure statement ethics counselor trainings, a new financial disclosure statement filer training, board and commission training for the Developmental Disabilities Council, the February monthly ethics training, the February brown bag session, and an ethics training for the DC Green Bank. On Monday, February 24th, Supervisory Attorney Advisor Stuart Mitchell and Program Coordinator Stan Kosick presented the February Ethics Counselor Brown Bag session, which was an introduction to the new FDS PeopleSoft inquiry. They presented information on how to run the new query to produce a spreadsheet that contains specific personal filer information. This query will ensure that Bega receives accurate contact information for each filer, which is key to providing notifications of the filing requirement. A copy of the presentation was placed in Dropbox. During the month of February, 29 employees completed ethics training using PeopleSoft, and 31 employees were added to the learning management system. The training team has been meeting with LRN to discuss creating new courses and updating existing courses to make them more accessible to users. Last month, OGE launched BGA 601 Financial Interest and Disclosures, which is an updated version of the previous financial disclosure training course. The new course allows users to select whether to complete the course as an ethics counselor or a filer or both, and provides information that is detailed for each role. OGE is currently working to create BGA 929, outside employment, which will address issues that employees should avoid when maintaining employment outside of the government. For an update on outreach, on February 19th, OGE published Volume 10, Issue 1 of its bi-monthly newsletter, Ethically Speaking. A copy of the newsletter was placed in Dropbox. Also, OGE is collaborating with the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission to create a training campaign for current ANCs, which will consist of notifying ANCs to complete LMS course BGA 920 Advisory Neighborhood Commissioners. Next is an update on advisory opinions and advice. First is informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 36 ethics inquiries, which is 19 more than the 17 reported at the February board meeting. This number does not include responses we have provided to questions regarding the lobbyist and FDS e-filing systems. For formal advisory opinions, since the last board meeting, OGE finalized and published advisory opinion, lobbyist registration and reporting after the expiration of the comment period without receiving any comment. The opinion provides guidance for lobbyists on the filing requirements and prohibited activities and informs district government employees of their obligation regarding lobbyists. A copy was placed in Dropbox. Next is an update on legislation and rulemaking. First is the Budget Support Act proposal. OGE has completed a draft Budget Support Act proposal, which will amend the lobbyist section of the Ethics Act by repealing Section 1-1162.28A4, which excludes 501c4 organizations from registering as lobbyist entities, and adding language that requires those entities to register in the same manner as 501c3 organizations. While public policy and the nature of 501c4 entities can justify a fee reduction in the same manner as it applies to other nonprofit organizations, Bega has not identified a practical or public policy purpose for completely exempting 501c4 entities from registration. The proposal was sent to the Office of the City Administrator for review and support. A copy was placed in the Dropbox for your review, and a copy will be provided to the council pending our budget oversight hearing. Outside employment approval recommendation. On February 23rd, I sent a letter to the mayor recommending that the district implement an outside employment approval requirement. I provided evidence of outside employment case dispositions in which employees provided services for private employers during their district government tour of duty. I also provided information on other jurisdictions that have outside employment approval rules. Bega has included such recommendations in its annual best practices report since 2021. Next is an update on OGE administrative matters. First, vacancies. OGE has made an offer on the Human Resources Specialist vacancy. 2 rounds of interviews were completed for the Attorney Advisor vacancy, and we hope to make an offer soon. The vacancy announcement for the legal fellow position has closed and OGE is reviewing resumes. OGE will soon post a vacancy announcement for its program support assistant position. Regarding our administrative officer position, I'm pleased to announce that Niquelle Titus has accepted the offer to serve in this role. Ms. Titus has been with the agency since 2023 as a program support assistant, where she earned invaluable insight into the agency's operations. Prior to joining Bega, Ms. Titus worked for DC Health Link as a team leader from 2015 until 2017, then as a quality assurance analyst from 2017 to 2022. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Niquelle Titus to this new position. Next is an update on the performance oversight hearing. On February 5th, Chairperson Hutcheson, Director Allen, and I provided performance oversight testimony before the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. The committee has requested that we provide answers to post-hearing questions, which are due on March 24th. OGE and OOG will provide our submission by the deadline. Next is an update on financial disclosure statement, FDS. Pursuant to DC Official Code Sections 1-1162.24 and 1-1162.25, public officials and certain government employees must file a financial disclosure statement as a means of transparency and to prevent engaging in conduct that violates the Financial Conflicts of Interest statute. Bega is responsible for ensuring that employees and public officials who meet the statutory requirement file their annual financial disclosure statement. We are in the initial stages of the 2025 financial disclosure season. As I previously stated, the team provided 3 ethics counselor FDS trainings and 2 trainings for new filers. OGE will hold an additional new filer training session on March 14th. The deadline for agencies to identify and provide their list of filers to OGE was Monday, March 3rd, and we have received most of the list. Next is an update on lobbyist registration and reporting, LRR. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.27A, a person who receives compensation or expends funds in an amount of $250 or more in any 3 consecutive calendar month period for lobbying shall register with the Director of Government Ethics and pay the required registration fee. According to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.30, each registrant shall file a quarterly report concerning the registrant's lobbying activity during the previous quarter. The LRR team sent fine notices for late filings for the 3rd quarter of 2024. This marks the first set of fines to be assessed since the implementation of the new fee and fine schedule set by the Budget Support Act of 2025. The next scheduled lobbying training is Wednesday, March 19th, to be given by Attorney Advisor Eccles and Program Coordinator Kosick. Last is an update on public investigations. The first one is 24-0010F, Henry Marcellus Willis. This is a formal investigation based on the complaint that the respondent, former employee of the University of the District of Columbia, used a government purchase card to make unauthorized purchases. Respondent worked at UDC for 5 years and was responsible for handling procurement for the university. The board approved the notice of violations, which contains assertions that respondent violated DPM Section 1800.3G by using public officer private gain, and DPM Section 1808.1 by failing to protect and conserve government property. A public hearing in this matter is scheduled for this afternoon. Next is 24-0016F, Henry Trayon White. This is a formal investigation based on a criminal indictment in which the respondent, Councilmember for Ward 8, allegedly agreed to receive $156,000 in bribes and accepted $35,000 in cash from a business owner in exchange for assisting with renewing the company's violence interruption contracts with the DC government. Respondent was indicted on 1 count of bribery. This matter is stayed pending the outcome of the criminal case, which is scheduled for trial on January 12, 2026. And the last matter is 25-0002F, Henry Trayon White. This is a formal investigation based on allegations that respondent, Councilmember for Ward 8, violated the code of conduct. Specifically, this office is investigating whether the respondent filed full and complete public financial disclosure statements pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.24, and whether he violated any rules of the council's code of conduct that are separate from the ongoing criminal investigation. This concludes my report. Thank you for this opportunity to present this information. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions?
I do have one. I read that there was there were proceedings on the Trayon White matter in front of the council. Can you give us tell us where that is procedurally right now?
As far as we know, that the last proceeding was that the council had a hearing to expel Councilmember White. The council did approve that expulsion, and I don't think he has been officially expelled yet, but we haven't received notice of any action since the hearing that they voted to actually expel him.
I noted that his attorney, Fred Cook, said that it actually should be this agency that do the proceeding rather than the council, because we have rules in place for process. So I just thought that was interesting. The agency got a shout out.
Yeah, it was interesting, but the council didn't seem to agree with that argument.
I guess the only other thing I would mention is a reminder that the 5th is the biennial Judicial and Bar Conference, which brings together the courts as well as members of bar and government. This year, the theme is going to be the future of the profession, shaping the next generation of legal practice. It'll be an all-day event. The Attorney General is speaking. The mayor will be there. And the morning is a plenary session, breakout sessions. It's particularly important, I think, this year because not only for the issues involving rule of law, but the disruptive nature of generative AI, which is really causing seismic shifts in the way we practice law. So I hope we have a robust showing by this agency of folks there, because I think it's going to be an important event. No further questions.
No further questions? Then,
Oh, I just have a comment, not a question. I just wanted to express my strong support for the recommendation that you sent to the mayor about the outside employment approval. I think it's incredibly important. We have it in the federal government, as you know, and I really hope that she takes it under consideration.
next on our agenda are public comments. Members of the public in attendance at the meeting may have an opportunity to make a comment at this time. Seeing none, everyone here looks like they're Bega related. Okay. So if there are no comments from the public, we will proceed with the next item on the agenda, and that's the executive session or closed session for the board. This is a closed session to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees or employees or officials pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Sir. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board enter into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it is now 10:41 and we are in executive session. Executive session, the board approved 2 negotiated dispositions. The first is 24-0064-P in Ray v. Duckett and 24-0101-P in Ray A. Carruthers. In addition, the board agreed to make formal investigation in matter 25-0004F in Ray McDaniel and to also stay the investigation pending outcome of the matter. So it's now 11:29, and this concludes the meeting of the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability for March. The board will meet again at 1 p.m. today to conduct an adversarial hearing in matter 24-0010-F in Ray Marcellus Willis. The next monthly meeting of the board will take place here at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, 1030 15th Street, Northwest, Suite 700 West, and virtually on April 3rd, 2025 at 10 a.m. Thank you.